مشى واقفين زي كذا وطخ اخوي في راسه. طلعت في اخوي زي كذا وضل يطخ طخني في ايدي.
They stormed one of the demonstrations camps, saying that there was Al-Qaeda there. They killed like 140 people, arrested many, journalists disappeared.
Hello, my name is Stanley Heller. Welcome to The Struggle. The Struggle is shown on 22 cable stations from Vermont to New York City, on the internet at thestruggle.org. We begin with some very sad footage from Gaza. A young man tells how his brother was killed by an Israeli sniper as the brother was picking up plastic to be recycled. Then some views of a part of Gaza City that had been flooded in December. The area is now mostly dry, but so much has been ruined. The bulk of our show is the beginning of a talk by Johanna Rivera. She has been living in Iraq most of the last 3 years, and she tells about an Iraq that has suffered nearly 8,000 political and religious murders in the last year, but where people are still trying to work for human and political rights. We begin in the Gaza Strip with the killing of Oded Hamad. The words are in Arabic with English subtitles.
أنا أخو عودة اسمي رداد عودة حمد. طلع من هنا على الساعة 12 وصلنا تقريبا على الساعة 2 غاد. في ناس كل يوم بنروح غاد وفيش حاجة يعني فيش ولا أي حاجة. في صيادين غاد ناس وكل العالم بتروح غاد وكل يوم بنروح غاد. احنا بنروح يا خال بنجيب بلاستيك من غاد بنلم كل يوم بنروح بنلم بلاستيك من غاد عشان بس نطلع لقمة عيشنا عشان ناكل ونشرب. عشان ناكل ونشرب. ايش ذنبه يطخوه؟ ايش ذنبه؟ مشى واقفين زي كذا وطخ اخوي في راسه. طلعت في اخوي زي كذا وضل يطخ طخني في ايدي. ارتميت في الجورة. قعدت ازعق اخوي ما رضيش يرد علي اخوي. ضل يطخ الجندي، قعدت ازحف عشان اقدر اجيب اسعاف وهذا اشرد. تقريبا نص كيلو جريت عشان بس اجيب اسعاف لقيت الناس في اخر الدنيا. قعدت نص ساعة لما الاسعاف اجى. وقعدوا كم نص ساعة يجوا يعملوا تنسيق بس عشان يخشوا يجيبوه. يا عم بقول لهم بدنا نخش نجيبه الزلمة بموت. اخوي بموت جوا. عودة بموت. ما رضوش يخشوا.
Understand that these two were shot a kilometer away from the border. That's about 6/10 of a mile. For Israel, it's not enough that the Gaza Strip is walled in. They also have to have a buffer zone on the Palestinian side of the border. Harvard researcher Sarah Roy has estimated that 14% of the land in the Gaza Strip is in these so-called no-go buffer zones, and that amounts to nearly half of all the land in the Gaza Strip that could be used for farming. Now some scenes from Gaza City's Nafak neighborhood, which suffered so much from the December flooding.
ايوه طاهر طلع عليه طاهر ركب
لا
تشبيش يا حاج؟ لا خليك برا.
Before we leave Palestine, Israel, I want to talk about the continuing hot controversy over attempts to destroy the American Studies Association because of the brave stand they took in joining the academic boycott of Israel. We've been covering it closely on our website, and I'm convinced we can help save the careers of the brave scholars who took that position. But you viewers have to take action. Go to our website, thestruggle.org, to see what you can do. Now, from a talk by Johanna Rivera, a chemist and engineer by training in Puerto Rico and at UConn. She's been doing work in Palestine and Iraq for a number of years. You do remember Iraq, the country where Bush and Obama were so proud of all we accomplished. Johanna Rivera spoke in December in New Haven.
So I can't believe it's already 3 years when I took that decision and decided to leave my PhD and to move on to follow my passion, or what I thought was my passion. And I think it has worked out. I mean, I think it's definitely what I wanted to do, and it evolved into what you will hear later. It's the work on water issues and water rights in Iraq, because I think I had that on the back of my mind and on my heart, because I'm a chemical engineer, so I did a lot of water before. So Stan put me a big task to talk about a lot of things in Iraq. I will start with two important points that I didn't work directly, but I was exposed, which is the issue of sectarianism and the Sunni-Shia divide. I will also talk about the situation of workers in Iraq and unions and freedom of expression. Then two other projects that I worked more closely, which were women's rights, the water issues, which we had started a transnational advocacy campaign between Turkey, Iraq, Iran, and some European countries. And then in the end, I will speak about the Iraqi Social Forum and what civil society is doing. So I will start a little bit with some bad news and a little bit depressing, but I hope in the end it will evolve into something positive, because I feel really positive. I left Iraq with deep sadness in my heart. I didn't want to leave, but after 3 years, it was a decision me and my fiancé that I met there in Iraq. He was also working there. So we decided to take a break because of health, to take care of our health and our family and friends. So first, with the sectarian divide, it's very difficult to explain. It's complicated. I myself still am learning a lot. But this Sunni-Shia divide is not thousands of years. It's a little bit like, they say the Jews and the Arabs, they've been fighting for thousands of years. It's not like that. I mean, Sunnis and Shias have been living in the Middle East with other minorities. It's not only also a Sunni-Shia thing. There are Christians, there are Yazidis in Iraq, there are Mandians, Shabaks, many other religions. So the sectarian issue is not only a Sunni-Shia thing, but it's something that's been used by the political elites, by the political parties. And it was something that we had as a US occupation. We had a lot of influence, because we decided to support one side or the other. We decided to give power to one side and not to the other after the fall of the Saddam regime. And this has shaped the way the political system in Iraq is now working, which is in quotas and, minority quotas, and the president has to be Kurd, and the prime minister has to be Shia, and the speaker of the house has to be Sunni. It's a way to control people because if I am a Shia, all the propaganda will dictate that I vote for the Shia party. If I am a Sunni, I will feel, I'm more protected by the Sunni political parties. And this is also the propaganda that they spread. The situation is such as people have lost confidence in the political system, in the judicial system. There's a lot of corruption. Recently, I think at the end of last year, not at the end of last year, but when the Americans left in the end of 2011, Maliki tried to accuse the vice president, which was the Sunni, Tariq al-Hashemi. He fled to Turkey. Relations with Turkey got bad because he gave asylum to the Sunni. He was tried and convicted and sentenced to death in Iraq. Of course, he fled first to the Kurdish area and then to Turkey. So this all started a political discontent. This year, people, and also back in 2011, there were demonstrations as a ripple effect of the Arab Spring. There were demonstrations in Iraq, in Baghdad. They started in Tahrir Square, it's called in Baghdad. They were heavily repressed by the government. So now the strategy was, in 2013, the demonstration started in the western and northern parts of Iraq, which are mostly Sunni. So people felt they were more prone to, to have their demonstrations without attacks from the government, which worked in a way in the beginning, but then the government stormed the demonstrations, and I think in the middle of April, they stormed one of the demonstrations camps, saying that there was Al-Qaeda there. They killed like 140 people, arrested many, journalists disappeared, and they are using the Sunni Shia, and the demonstrations are terrorist organizations are calling for these demonstrations. So yes, the situation is like that in a way. But again, not all people is buying into this divide, into this political divide. There was recently a campaign, the past couple of months, the campaign for the cancellation of the parliamentarians' pension. So people from all over Iraq decided that they didn't want the retired parliamentarians to have $20,000 of salaries and benefits a month. They decided that they have to start tackling corruption as a way to, to work on the unification of the country. So they were successful, and the parliament didn't pass the law. This is a small issue, it's not other bigger issues that are in Iraq, like lack of services, torture, human rights violations, but at least people united in one cause that was common to all. They know there is corruption. They know they have to tackle corruption. It was not sectarian. It was like, we want to end the parliamentarians' benefits because it's not serving us. So yeah, I wanted just to say that. I mean, I have some articles we printed that is talking more, it's giving a more in-depth political analysis, including the Kurdish, the Sunni and the Shia. And I will speak later what the Iraqi Social Forum was and how it's also building civil society movements. So I just wanted to say, from this campaign, it was a genuine protest movement motivated by not ethnic or sectarian reasons. This was one of the articles I read that described this protest movement. So that in terms of the sectarianism. In terms of the workers' rights and union rights, in February this year, there was a big demonstration in Basra. The oil workers, organized with the union leaders, started to demand benefits that they were promised, health care, education, and housing that the Ministry of Oil had promised and did not deliver. So there were some demonstrations in February. The union leaders were calling to the court, were charged for inciting inciting violence and destabilizing the economy because they stopped the oil production. So in the group I was working, which is called ICSSI, is the Iraqi Civil Society Solidarity Initiative. We felt this was an important issue of human rights because it has to do with freedom of expression, freedom of association, and the Constitution of Iraq guarantees freedom of association. But on the other hand, they were using Saddam-era laws to ban workers from organizing and demonstrating. So we started an international campaign to gather people in different countries from different unions, trade unions, other international unions. Here in the U.S., one of the leading parties was the U.S. law, U.S. Labor Against the War. So they organized, everybody called their networks all over the U.S., in Europe, 44 international unions, 41 trade unions, and 68 NGOs joined the Solidarity campaign. The campaign wrote a letter to the Prime Minister and the Ministry of Oil, calling for all the, Iraq should respect all international conventions regarding labor and workers. And the guy that was being charged was the president of the biggest union in Iraq. Hassan Juma is his name. So with our effort, a lot of signatures collected, a lot of information spread, a lot of news articles in the internet, we managed to put pressure in the Iraqi government. And in July, the case was delayed many, many times because the prosecutor and the lawyer from the South Oil Company, which is the Iraqi oil company, they were claiming that there were economic losses, and this is why this union leader had to pay and had to go to jail. They couldn't demonstrate that. They couldn't demonstrate that there were economic losses, so the charges were dropped in July. There was an appeal, and now in November, the charges were dropped again for the second time. I met Hassan Juma when I was there in June, just before his the first trial, and he was very, serene, and he was very hopeful that with all the international solidarity that he had gotten to back him up, the case was going to be okay. It was a success, and this is also why I wanted to bring it up, because it was a success from the international solidarity movement, that unions from here, which we had a conference in 2012, they had been working to reform the unions law. But it takes time to have a draft, to submit it to the parliament. But the unions had been working already with Iraqi union leaders. So this was a process. There was already a relationship, and they responded to the call of solidarity that Iraqis were making. So this is another success from international solidarity and civil society in Iraq, the mobilization that took place. So now I want to talk a little bit about the women's rights issues. Maybe I'm going a little bit fast, so if you have questions, we can take them in the end. So I was working with the advocacy campaign to end honor killings in Iraqi Kurdistan, which is the area where I was based, in Suleimania. It's the north of Iraq. So in Kurdistan and in other areas in the Middle East and Africa, this is a phenomenon. So honor killing is basically the woman of the family carries the honor. So if she does something that is considered bad for the family, she's killed. So if she marries somebody that her family doesn't accept, if she wants to go to school and not get married, and her family wants her to be married to a cousin, adultery, or seeing a person which is not part of the family or close family relative. And even some women have been killed because they have a phone number that her family doesn't know who this number is, so it's suspected that she's dating someone. I mean, there are other issues. There are forced marriages, which lead to honor killing because the woman engaged, in adultery, or they're in love with someone else and they were married before when they were 10 or 12, or they were forced to marry someone that they didn't love. So we have forced marriage, we have early marriages, and we have honor killing. And in Kurdistan, if you go there, I mean, it looks like a secular society. I mean, women are without the hijab, they go to work, they go to school, but still people in the villages have very traditional values, and it's a very patriarchal society. So our campaign started last year in 2012, and it was a teacher that was killed by her father because she married someone that her father didn't agree. So during this year, we were following up this case, and we were in the court several times, where women activists collected evidence for this case. They were in the media all the time. They were doing, they were promoting this case so as to put pressure in the government that they have to tackle these cases of honor killing. Because the other problem is that we have a legal system, but there is a tribal system. So many of these issues are dealt within the tribal system, not in the legal system. We as women activists, we want to enforce the rule of law. We want to enforce the laws that are on paper but are not really enacted. So this was the purpose of this following this case. So the first time the father was released, because the other thing is that there's no training of the police, so they don't know how to collect evidence. So the gun disappeared. The gun was used to kill the woman, ended up with the family again. There's no evidence. There was no electricity, so nobody saw, what happened. So it's very difficult to make a case in the legal system. The mother who was on the night of the murder, she saw, she knew it was the father, but she cannot testify because she has a whole tribe against her. So if she said it was him, she will get in trouble. She could get killed. She will be kicked out of her clan. So there's many constraints. So we were trying to provide support to the mother to say, we are with you. We will, the case is in the media, nothing will happen to you. Please testify. And I was in the court case several of the times, and the mother didn't want to testify. She was put into she has to swear on the Quran. So she would swear, and then she would be speaking to the other side, not to the judge. She was very afraid. In the end, the guy was released. The pressure of the women activists managed to get the prime minister to get the guy again, or to issue a retrial. So for the second time, we were against in the court. And this time, she testified. And then the court said that we women activists had falsified and coerced her testimony. So he was released again for the second time. And now we were going to appeal to the Supreme Court. But everywhere we went, and the woman that we talked, they knew about this case. Everybody in the whole country knew about this case. It's Mamosta Sakar, you will see some of the pictures. We did a good job with the media, with raising awareness. But it's still challenging. The laws are in place, but women are afraid to go to the police station, and the police is not trained to deal with cases of violence against women. So the woman, and if she goes, she has to testify to a policeman or like a room full of men. I mean, she's the victim and she's also stigmatized. I mean, there's no shelters also, so some of the demands that the women's rights activists were using on this campaign is to open more shelters in different provinces that are accessible to the woman. The government has a few shelters, but it's not enough and it's not sustainable. I mean, the women are just locked there and they have to spend the rest of their lives in a shelter because if they go out, they will be killed. So, I mean, my colleagues are working on that awareness about honor killing, enforcing the laws. They're working also on the domestic violence law, and so women know more about their rights and how they can exercise their right, and with the shelters. There was also some, not radicalizations, but there were some imams speaking against these women's rights activists. So saying that these women are defending bad women. So these women that go to the shelter or they're killed, they deserve it. So why we are defending bad women? So there were demonstrations again for, to speak against what the religious leaders were saying. And of course, some religious leaders are supporting, but many are very conservative.
That's our program for today. See you next week at this time. I'm Stanley Heller, and this is The Struggle.